A man in a suit sits slumped against a seawall on a beach near Adelaide, Australia. He looks like he's just resting. Legs stretched out, ankles crossed, a half-smoked cigarette still perched on his collar. But he's dead. No ID, no wallet. Every single label cut out of his clothes. It's December 1st, 1948, and this man will spend the next 74 years with no name. Buried in his pocket is a single scrap of paper, torn from a book of poetry. 2 words, Tamam Shud. It means the end. Somerton Park Beach, just south of Adelaide, wasn't the kind of place anything strange happened. Post-war Australia was quiet, recovering, cautious. And this was 1948, 3 years after the war, right as Cold War tensions were starting to creep into public consciousness. A passerby noticed him early that morning and assumed he was asleep or drunk and walked on. It wasn't until hours later that someone realized he wasn't breathing. When police searched him, no wallet, no ID, no wristwatch, unusual for a well-dressed man in that era. His suit was expensive, his shoes freshly polished, but every clothing label had been carefully removed, not torn off in a struggle, but cut out, deliberately, like someone didn't want him traced. The few items in his pockets told a story of ordinariness. A used bus ticket, a pack of chewing gum, a box of matches, a comb, and a pack of cigarettes containing a different, more expensive brand than the pack itself. Nothing fit together. A well-dressed man, with an unremarkable life in his pockets, and no way to say who he was. The autopsy raised more questions than it answered. There were no obvious injuries, no signs of a struggle. His organs showed signs consistent with poisoning, but no toxicologist could identify what poison, if it even was one. That alone was strange. 1940s toxicology could detect virtually every poison known at the time. Whatever killed him left no trace. Weeks passed with no identification. Then, in January 1949, a break. Staff at the Adelaide railway station found an unclaimed suitcase, checked in the day before the man died. Inside were clothes, again with labels removed except for one. A laundry tag reading T. Keen, which turned out to be a dead end. There was also a thread that matched the unusual stitching on the dead man's trousers, tying the suitcase back to him. Then, months later, came the detail that turned this from a strange death into a legend. A pathologist doing a final review of the man's clothing found a small hidden pocket sewn into the waistband of his trousers. So obscure it had been missed in the original search. Inside was a tightly rolled scrap of paper. Printed on it, 2 words, Tamam Shud, Persian for the end or finished. Investigators traced the scrap to a rare edition of the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, an 11th century collection of poetry. The words were literally the last line printed in the book. Police put out a public appeal, and a man came forward saying he'd found a copy of that exact book, with the ending page torn out, discarded in the back seat of his unlocked car, parked near the beach the night before the body was found. Inside the back cover of that book, 5 lines of jumbled capital letters, written in pencil, indented so faintly they were almost missed. A code. No one has ever definitively cracked it. Also written in the book, in the same handwriting, a phone number. Police traced it to a woman living just a few streets from where the body was found. A nurse, referred to publicly at the time only as Justin. Her real identity kept out of records for decades at her request. When police showed her a plaster cast made of the dead man's face, witnesses say she appeared to almost faint. but she denied ever knowing him. Her reaction, and her refusal to explain further, fueled decades of speculation. Was she protecting someone? Herself? Was the dead man someone from her past? Theories multiplied for decades. Cold War tensions were rising fast in 1948, and Adelaide happened to be close to a highly sensitive weapons testing facility. That, combined with the uncracked code, convinced many that the man was a spy. Poisoned in a Cold War operation, his identity deliberately erased. Others focused on the code itself. Cryptographers who examined it noted it didn't behave like a real cipher. The letter patterns were too random, too inconsistent with any known code structure. For over 70 years, none of it could be confirmed. DNA testing didn't exist when he died, and for decades afterward, authorities had no legal way to exhume the body for testing. That changed in 2021, when South Australian authorities finally approved exhumation. Using hair recovered from the original plaster cast made of his face back in 1949, a University of Adelaide researcher ran forensic genetic genealogy, tracing DNA matches through distant relatives to build out a family tree. In July 2022, the answer came. The Somerton Man was Carl Charles Webb, a 43-year-old electrical engineer and instrument maker from Melbourne. Records suggested a troubled marriage and a life that had, by some accounts, fallen apart in the years before his death. Webb was known to enjoy poetry and reportedly wrote some himself, which may explain the book. Some researchers now believe the code wasn't a cipher at all, but a list of horses he'd bet on, since betting shorthand from that era sometimes used similar letter groupings. The identity is now widely accepted, but naming him didn't close the case. No one has explained why his clothing labels were removed, why the nurse reacted the way she did, or, most importantly, how or why he actually died. 70+ years later, the man finally has a name. The mystery still doesn't have an ending. Sometimes solving who someone was is the easy part. Figuring out what actually happened to them is a different question entirely. If you're into cases where the answer somehow raises more questions than it settles, subscribe. Next week I'm covering another case that stayed unsolved for over a century: the Villisca Axe murders.